Welcome back. Tonight is going to be a light-hearted stream. Again, we're just going to take our time. I visited over to Red Squid X's channel last night, and he gave me an opportunity to go up and speak to him about what pattern recognition I was seeing here on YouTube and in my life as well. And the image that you see tonight is what AI created for me through the AI generation. And those were, the last pictures were also AI generation that I have done throughout the last year and a half. And it keeps showing us this prompt in different scenarios, different examples. And when we were at Red Squid X's channel, I could see the patterns in his AI work as well. In my last stream, I was showing you some of my artwork that I've done in journals and on note paper. And it's this pattern as well. So this is not a new symbol to me, but it's also not a new symbol to all of us. And that's what I've been showing you in past streams. My streams are pattern recognition. And for some, they may say that it's the syncretism. But I would like to say that in my experience, part of the syncretism or understanding of seeing the patterns, I almost did it in a reversed manner. I was raised with religion in my life. I was indoctrinated through religion on what my foundation was to understanding about what God was. And then in each decade of my life, I would go through different stages and hardships in my life and great things. But it would bring me to a different type of awareness. And that's what we all go through. Every decade gives us something new to learn from. But we're always learning. We're forever learning. And I taught myself how to meditate organically through breathing, through positions that my body sits in, what my hands do. Going into that state and seeing the most beautiful things and feeling the most wonderful joy. And for those who've experienced know what I'm talking about. And I know I'm not the only one, because this is what these religious practices guide us to help us remember how to do it. And this symbol, or an angel, it seems to have an energy code through a vibration, through a symbol, through an energy. And I'm sure if we were to spin this image on my avatar, it would make something like Merkaba. So the first video I'm going to share is someone who is going to share their experience with you while they were in a meditation and how they experienced this. And they're going to tell us what the Hindus call it, Jasamdi. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it. Hold on just a minute.
My favorite phrase in all of the spiritual teachings I've come upon comes from the Bhagavad Gita, the classic text of ancient India. It teaches, as it is. Observe and inquire into reality as it is. Normally, we see the world as we are, not as it is. To see reality as it is, we have to change the instrument we use to investigate, which is ourselves. I'm going to share a story with you about an encounter that happened one day during my meditation practice. It was an encounter with beings that identified themselves to me as the seraphim.
I would like to point out that already this diagram of the position that this animation is sitting in, this is what it feels like in your mind's eye. This is what you're seeing yourself doing, and it does feel like this, like an energy that's you're trying to control go up and down. The reason why I've chosen this video to share with you is that I've listened to this many times, and it describes beautifully. I know this is accurate because I've experienced it myself, so that's why I would like to share it with you.
Which, for those who are unfamiliar, is the name for the angels that are said to surround the throne of heaven in the Bible. Such encounters are a very prominent but seldom discussed feature of the perennial wisdom, and found in virtually every spiritual tradition. While the symbols and images change from culture to culture, there's one inner evolutionary mechanism or developmental process that they point toward. This experience was very humbling for me. For most of my life, my ego structure has had an aversion to people who talk about angels, or any otherworldly beings for that matter. I had a lot of judgment and concepts around these things.
So I'd like to also point out that this doesn't necessarily seem to be, this is an experience all of us can have. It doesn't matter what your religion is my point. Everyone has the potential to do this, and cultures and religions teach us if we're in tune to it.
But nevertheless, I have a clear inner direction to report on my experience. So perhaps this is some kind of karmic reckoning for me. What I'm going to talk about is not related to religion or beliefs, but has to do with encountering new dimensions of your own being. I'm going to try to convey the experience precisely, without interpretation or concepts. I do have some insights that I will share at the end. But I think it's important that the description of the actual experience is neutral, without any embellishment. This experience happened during a period when I was doing a lot of meditation. I entered into a samadhi state or a turiya state, which is described in the Samadhi films in detail. So this was a state of continuous presence of primordial awareness, and it lasted for several days. I had been doing meditation for over 20 years and also had run a meditation retreat center, the Samadhi Center in Canada, for several years. Early in my practice, I started out using various techniques, particularly Buddhist techniques such as those related to shamatha, which is tranquility, vipassana, which is insight meditation. And after exploring techniques for over a decade, I was drawn eventually to the practices of non-doing or non-practice, self-inquiry, mahamudra, choiceless awareness, shikantaza, or what they call just sitting in Zen. I realized that the meditation that leads to samadhi is not an activity or a doing.
So the older I've gotten, I want to learn more and more about other practices. And I want to say that what he's speaking about, though, when you're out there in prayer, the body automatically does it. When you're in tuned and you quiet the mind. And then as soon as you think about something, it potentially can change and alter your whole experience. But now I understand why it's consistently that it speaks upon quieting the mind.
But a waking up to the dimension of being, which is what I've referred to as primordial awareness. On the day in question, I was abiding as awareness, allowing everything to be as it is, and I had stopped discriminating pain and pleasure. I was experiencing Sat Chitananda, the bliss that comes when primordial awareness is present.
Again, I know what he's talking about when you get into that state of mind, when the body is relaxed. You start to connect, and he's describing what each one of these steps feels like.
One realizes a new level of consciousness that includes and yet transcends the senses. The senses are essentially maxed out, and energy expands through them into higher realms, activating what Rudolf Steiner would call organs of higher perception. In this experience, an unfamiliar but profoundly exquisite feeling rose up within the energetic body, like a new dimension of consciousness waking up, or a new faculty coming online. This isn't my usual language, but it felt like this feeling was placed in me by God. There's always a tendency within the ego to grasp and hold experiences, especially when beautiful experiences happen. But on this day, I didn't grasp at it. I just allowed it to unfold without any thoughts arising whatsoever, just having a complete experience of it. At least initially, this was the case. I would describe it as a deeply sacred feeling, and I felt intuitively that this was an ancient way to pray. This was prayer itself. Until this moment, I had not known what true prayer was.
I felt exactly the same way when I experienced this for the first time at its intensity. Um, it felt so holy, it felt so overwhelming, in gratitude and joy, acceptance, um, charged, connected, um, everything. I understand why they call it enlightenment.
If you had asked me prior to this, I undoubtedly would have said that I did know. My ego, which is a highly spiritualized ego, likes to think that it knows everything, but it gets humbled over and over. Now I know that I don't know what I don't know. The phenomena unfolding within the self-structure was something different than what for 20 years I considered meditation to be. It was something utterly unknown. I began to meditate or pray in this sacred way, although I can take no credit for it happening whatsoever. It was just happening. It was like the body and energy structure were being prayed. Awareness was purely aware, non-local, all-pervasive, yet nowhere. Samadhi is not an experience, but a collapse of the duality of experiencer and the experienced. A luminous presence appeared, interfacing with my energy field at the third eye. At this point, there were actually several levels of phenomena playing out simultaneously. I was aware of my gross physical body meditating, and through the inner vision, I perceived what seemed to be some kind of a temple. There was a humanoid figure there with wings and a bird tail. In my mind at the time, I thought that he looked like a Sufi. He had a flat hat and a beard, and he was carrying a glowing ring. I felt an incredible power in this being, and somehow I knew that the ring he was holding was alive. Around him were angelic light beings who identified themselves as the seraphim. As soon as I turned my attention to the light beings, I did not see the man in the Sufi hat any longer. I couldn't focus on these light beings directly. They were indistinct, like moving fractals, recursive patterns that held a general form, but they were changing endlessly, like dancing energy. They were beautiful, and I wanted to focus on them, but I couldn't, or they would start to disappear. So I relaxed into a diffuse sort of vision, accepting that I couldn't form a distinct image of them. There were 3 of them, and they moved and spoke as one. These are their exact words. We are the seraphim. If you merge with our light, there is much we can show you. To become like us, you must burn only with love for the Creator, and His consuming fire will quickly transform you into the flaming likeness of the seraphim. They emphasized the word only, and the word felt significant. Each of the 3 was emanating the same sacred feeling or vibration. Just like it says in the Bible, they emanated holy, holy, holy. But it was not an auditory word or mantra.
So when I was experiencing this, and this is how I have a feeling that it's a frequency, what he's speaking about, I understood it, but there were no words for it. But he's putting words to the feeling. It feels like it says holy, holy, holy to you. It's overwhelming in terms of feeling, trying to even describe what a joy and gratitude, warmth, peace, love, abundance. To help keep you on track and stay connected to this.
It's hard to describe, but somehow their very being was that vibration or holy emanation. What was strange was that the seraphim seemed somehow mechanical. This part I don't really understand.
So, Red, this is what we were looking at in your AI generation last night when we were going through the files, and we were looking at the points where it was showing it being a mechanical part of a realm. Is that interesting?
Understand. They were conscious and interactive, yet it seemed like a machine turning on with an endless loop, like an endlessly repeating message. I saw their pattern. It seemed like they were an ancient template, groaning and creaking, flickering into life for this specific purpose. At first, their energy was a bit dim, but as I opened to the experience, they energized to a full glow. My self-structure was in awe. But yet awareness was just observing, unmoved. They told me that when the seraphim come, it is usually followed by great turmoil. I wasn't sure at the time if they meant great turmoil in my life or turmoil on earth. Through the seraphim, the soul is able to complete its journey to God and live.
Let me read that again. Through the seraphim, the soul is able to complete its journey to God and live. So that's what it feels like when you're experiencing it. When I experience this, I know I'm speaking to my soul, that I am my soul. I'm reminding myself I am my soul, not I am not of my body. And I'm not the only one who experiences this message.
Those were the exact words given.
And I want to say too that I know that I will be criticized for sharing this with you, because some would say, how dare you try to tap into whatever it is that you're tapping into, that it's demonic and that it's evil. Oh, no, no. This is not evil and it is not demonic, and human beings have been experiencing this a lifetime. It's some type of memory, it's some type of energy, it's some type of code, it's some type of frequency. You can go on and on and on. Once you realize the magnetism of all of it, um, now I know why there's mystics and why they go into isolation and why they study. And it takes a lot of inner awareness when you go into this state to realize when somebody is speaking about it this way, that it is an accuracy of tuning into to an understanding of wellness, in my opinion.
Through the seraphim, the soul is able to complete its journey to God and live. The sacred feeling started to grow, and I began to feel a deep love, a love without discrimination, like a sun shining. There are no words for this. There was a deep letting go within my being, and I actually started to change into light or emptiness or both. It was not dreamlike, but absolutely vivid and seemed startlingly real, happening on multiple levels of self. I started to burn with a living white flame, starting at the feet, and all of me was being pulled towards God. It was an atomic dissolution. I've gone through countless death experiences or letting go experiences. During meditation practice or entheogen experiences, breathing, yoga exercises, but this seemed totally different, more real, hyper real, and deeper, connected to the soul. It was a level of non-dual union and cessation of self that was absolute. When this dissolution started happening, at a point my mind came back online and asked, am I dying? Is this the end of my actual life? And as soon as that happened, I realized I had become identified. I had generated an egoic thought, a fearful thought, and the dissolution process stopped. Everything vanished. If
And the same exact thing happened to me. As soon as you have a specific thought that is of the physical body and it brings you back down into the physical self, disappears just like that.
whatever was happening had completed, I honestly don't know if I would be here to tell about it. So that is the description of the event itself. Now I'm going to give you a sort of commentary, what I think or feel about the event. So first, this was a surprising event for several reasons. In this single experience, I confirmed without a doubt that the higher realms described by the spiritual masters are as real or more real than this world.
So, Red, if you're still listening in, this is what we were also discussing on your channel last night, was the different realms and there being different um, gods or energies revealing itself.
It was also surprising that it happened to me, even though to a large degree there was a letting go of my self-identification. I certainly am not the strongest meditator. I'm not prone to devotion. And although I've done a lot of inner work and maybe purified many attachments, I still fall into identification and ego entrapments. I'm far from being any kind of saint. So my opinion or my feeling about this is that I was given a preview of what is to come, of what is possible for human evolution, so that I can tell you about it. To prepare the groundwork for those who will come in the future, who will grow and evolve into union with the Source. Through imitation of the seraphim, or you could say by matching their vibration, humans can have the same unmediated union with God. We're meant to imitate them, merge with their light, to become like them, but not to worship them. They represent a latent possibility within ourselves. It's important to let go of the experience so that you don't add it to your self-structure, so that the ego doesn't hang on to it and create some identity or some new locked-in worldview.
When I heard him say that, it made sense to me, because for a while, the first time I had experienced something like that, it at such intensity, it was overwhelming, and I would withdraw and spend more time focusing on what I needed to do to get back into this state of mind, which was wellness, taking care of my body, my mind, my body, my spirit. And then I started to realize that I had to accept it for that moment and move on and move forward. And then just have hopes that I would be able to imitate it again. And I do. If I want to, I go into this state, and I know what I need to do to prepare to get myself to this moment. So I know that this is I can't let myself hold on to each moment. I have to look forward to the next experience.
The paradox is that peak experiences or mystical experiences tend to unfold around samadhi. But it is important not to confuse any experience with samadhi itself. There are a number of insights that I've taken from the experience. When I came back into the world from this, one huge insight was that we as human beings are utterly ignorant of what we are and what our place is in the universe. Humans are myopic creatures full of hubris to a degree that is laughable. We've mastered the arts of distortion and delusion and limitation. We've lost any sense of our place in the great chain of being. Instead, we've cultivated an independent self, which is an amazing creation in its own right. But this independent self has now grown to a point where we have a choice. We have a choice to serve the directions and wants of that self, or to rejoin the spiral of life in alignment with the divine plan. Realizing samadhi is only the first step in an unfathomable unfolding journey to expanding the inner lotus into higher worlds, or the enlightenment process, which is a trajectory, not a destination. Awakening is waking up to the unchanging dimension of absolute being, pure consciousness, while enlightenment is about the ongoing dance of evolution and involution within the manifested world.
I don't know if you guys can hear me or not, but my computer completely froze. And I have to turn it off. So I'm going to shut down, and if it works again tonight, I'll pop back on. But if not, then I will possibly see you guys tomorrow. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Have a good night, everyone.